You are listening to the Wi-Fi Ninjas podcast, where we talk about wireless technology. Here are your hosts, Mac Daring and Matt Starling.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Wi-Fi Ninjas podcast. Matt and Mac here, but today not only are we joined by some industry legends, but also very, very good friends. We have Mr. Peter Mackenzie and Mr. Jussi Kiviniemi. First of all, Peter, how are you?
Yeah, I would say I'm doing very well because I always say that, but I've actually got an injured hand at the moment, so I'm struggling through a little bit of pain, but I'm okay.
Yeah, I know Mac is dying to make some rude comment joke here, so we'll just let you imagine what he would probably say. I'm pretty sure we can all guess.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You know what I mean. Jussi, how are you?
Oh, guys, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having us. It's always a pleasure to talk about anything Wi-Fi with you guys. But certainly excited to talk about one of the pet projects we've had with Peter for a number of months, maybe a year already, more than a year already. So excited to be here. Thanks for having us, guys.
The pleasure is all ours, and all of our listeners love listening to you guys. So, okay, so what are we going to be discussing today then? Do you want to let everyone know?
Oh, I can go. This is really more of a Peter project when it actually comes to what's being built. But so the idea was, Mist is still a pretty young company. Let's face it, and the Juniper acquisition isn't that old either. So traditionally, Mist has gone like really light in terms of processes, and will do things when they are needed, not because some process or red tape says that we need to have a certain number of things laid down. So in terms of training, for example, Mist has had I think the excellent like online training called Mist Master, which has been Matt Barletta essentially scraping content from left and right, putting it together. He's a director at Mist, and so on his weekends he puts content together and builds courses out of that. And then at some point 1.5 years ago, around the time when I was joining Mist, Sudhir, my boss, said, okay, we need something more formalized, and Jussi, you've done this stuff before, so can you get the people together and the concepts together and start like building an actual official training course for Mist that would also fly with our parent company Juniper, who already have a very successful and quite sizable education program. And that's kind of how this got started. And we did this in this company once, or in a company I was before at once already. So we had that blueprint. Then we had the Juniper blueprint of like creating and delivering courses, and now it was about fitting those pieces of the puzzle together, and also like finding, like, again, scratching heads on like what really makes a good course. Well, it's the trainers and it's the material and it's the delivery and all of that. And then started thinking like, who would be the perfect person to do something like this for Mist, like interested in automation, a real Wi-Fi guru, kind of forward-leaning person who also understands scripting and APIs and all of that. And then at the same second, at least let's say the story goes, at the same second my phone rang and Peter called me for whatever reason. I was like, oh, Peter, actually, now that I have you on the phone. And I don't know, Peter, you I guess that's pretty much what happened, right? So how was your reaction, Peter, when when we started discussing this? It was actually with the Ninjas in London, like, I don't know, more than a year ago, 1.5 years ago or something like that. How did you feel about the whole idea?
Yeah, my initial reaction was a little bit to sort of step back a bit and go, okay, you want a course writing. I've always been of the opinion that if you want a good course writing, that takes a lot of time and effort. So absolutely, there's certain ingredients that make a good course. It's good content, good course content, which needs to be written and written well. And I always say, if you're going to develop good course materials, that takes time. And you can develop course materials really fast, but they're normally not very good. But then you also need good delivery as well, just as equally important. So you need good people, good course delivery, good course content. So my initial reaction was, well, that's great, and we can do that, but is there the time needed to do it, and what's the process going to be? And I think from our initial conversations that it was, Mist was still a young company, very agile, very happy to adapt, to be able to make those, I guess, provide the resources and give me the flexibility to help develop a course that does meet all of that criteria. What was interesting in the process was very soon that got passed to Juniper Education Services, which is, well, it's a machine, I think is the best way to describe it. It's within Juniper itself. It's like an organization itself, which brings many benefits to the table, but also to some extent, as well as bringing many benefits, they've also very structured and formal processes, which we weren't necessarily going to fit into. So it brought some challenges as well. And I think that's at the point it started becoming quite interesting, actually, is how we married its idea we've got, the concept of what we want the training to be like, with the sort of Juniper structured methodology for producing and delivering certifications.
Yeah, but the second we heard, both ninjas, that you are going to be involved in writing this course, we knew it's going to be amazing. And we are extremely excited now because we haven't sat this course yet. We are sitting it next week with Matt. So Matt, what do you think about the idea of sitting this magnificent course done by Peter? It's like, before you answer this question, it's like, I personally feel that the best course I've ever had in my life was the CWAP, also written by Peter and delivered by him in person. And at this point, I know that you couldn't, guys, give it to a better person than Peter. So I have high hopes, and hopefully it will deliver.
Yeah, well, you've kind of answered the question for me, because I obviously sat that class with you, and yeah, just to echo what Max said, it was by far the best class that I've sat on. My mind blown. I learned a lot, and we actually had the pleasure. It was quite a small group, so it's pretty much just me, Mac, one other person, and then Peter for 4 days, just talking about protocol analysis on Wi-Fi. And we was lucky to spend lunch and dinner as well, chewing the fat with Peter. So it was a great week. We know anytime you spend with Peter, you're going to learn something, from seeing him at his conferences to all of the other videos that you do. It's always amazing content. But going back to what Jussi said about the Mist Masters, that was really helpful for personally myself when I was first learning about Mist, to go through that course to learn how to add access points, to configure certain parts of Mist. It was great. But now knowing that there's another training course where you can take that knowledge to the next step, I'm really looking forward to that, because we are deploying Mist now for quite a lot of customers. So giving ourselves that edge, making sure we know, I think we've got a pretty good idea of what we're doing, but maybe we can just hit that rubber stamp to make sure that we're definitely doing it right. And it's great that you can get a certification to confirm that. So really looking forward to the class and then taking the exam.
Yeah, but even if we are professionally working with Mist pretty much on a daily basis, there is still plenty of things that we are not 100% accustomed to. So working with Marvis proficiently, it's one of these things. Typically it works. You can ask Marvis, the virtual assistant, a question, and it will answer in some sort. But there are some tips and tricks that will make your interaction with Marvis better. Also, working with the APIs with Mist is another area that I personally look forward to be improving upon. And all this, massive telemetry stuff available to us in a Mist dashboard, how do you access that? And, how do you make sense of everything that it gives you when you are troubleshooting issues or optimizing your network? This is another massive area that, I'm sure that all of us, we could improve. And if Peter has spent enough time dealing with it, looking at it, learning it, and then creating content around it, I'm super excited to take that course.
Yeah. I think something you touched on there is really important in the fact that there's lots you can still learn with Mist, even if you've been using it for quite a while. It was something that I slowly became to realize through this process was just how involved the Mist interface is. It's on first look, it seems quite simple because it's designed to be easy to use with a simple UI. And it's only as you start to unpick it in what's actually going on when you hit that checkbox, or what's going on when it's calculating these SLEs, but what's it doing and how is it calculating it? You sort of start to dig and you unearth more and more and more detail and information around it, which is only going to help you to be able to interpret the UI and use it better. And that was a process, I think, that took me a little bit by surprise, I'll be honest, in the fact that I just felt that as I started digging, I was like, whoa, there's more and more to learn, and there's more and more to learn, and there's more and more to learn. And at one point I was going, we're never going to write this course, because every day through this sort of probably a 3-month project, I was learning about completely new things I didn't even know existed. Mm-hmm. And it literally felt like a daily learning exercise for me. Luckily, I had some really great contacts within Mist who were literally helping me out on a daily basis to unearth and understand how all the little elements work. Because you guys know me, I like to know not just if something tells me a number, I like to know how it was calculated, why it was calculated that way. Is it the right way? I like to know every detail of how something works. I used to be that child who used to take everything apart with a screwdriver as a child just to find out how it works.
It's a big question then. What is the name of this course?
That's a really big question.
I know we've been talking now for the last 10 minutes, but we haven't actually mentioned
what the screen while answering it. Answer it from the top of your head.
You don't want me to answer it from the top of my head because it's a course name which has changed several times during its development, but it's ultimately a JNCIS certification class. So it's a class to support the Mist certification, which is the specialist level certification.
So JNCIS Mist specialist is the...
It's JNCIS Mist AI is the...
Mist AI is the certification. So JNCIS is that basically stands for specialist. It's like Juniper Network certified. I think it's engineered AI specialist. They do a specialist one. That's what the S stands for. Is it really? And then it's Mist AI is the designation for its tracked.
Okay, so is it like more of a professional or expert level course?
So they do an administrator, which we have a certification for, which is like the base level. Then they do specialist. Then they do professional, and then they do like an expert level. So it's 4 tiers.
But this specific course is the specialist course. It's not like for the administrator. I don't know if you ninjas have already done it, but the administrator is you just take an online exam. Next level is specialist, where you're going next week, which is the 4-day course. And then the more advanced ones are still yet to come.
Is it a prereq then that we need to take the administrator before?
I'm not actually sure, but just go take it. I mean, it's just an exam, and
once you've done the course, you will know everything you need for both those exams.
Okay. So then my next question, how do you take the exam? Is it just an exam you just go to a website and take, or is it a proctored exam? Like, what is the...
They're proctored exams on Prometric.
Okay.
No person, yeah.
Perfect. So, okay, so going back to the course then, Peter, it sounded like you had a bit of a mountain to climb to put that together. Do you want to maybe, talk us through a little bit about your process, some of the content, and give a bit more insight to how you came up with it all?
Yeah, so the first thing really was to try and think about a structure for the course, because the more we dig, the more we realized there was more content we could put in there. The initial idea was to keep it very focused on Wi-Fi. It's meant to be for a Wi-Fi engineer. So we wanted to provide some base level Wi-Fi knowledge on the class. That was something very important to me, because before one of the and that's something which sets it apart, I think, from a lot of other vendor certification courses. I didn't want it to be like a normal vendor certification course where you learn button clicks and you learn that if you want to configure this, you click here, 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 and here. You don't know why you're clicking there, what it's doing. You just know that is the recommended way to configure, I don't know, PEEP, for example. So what we've done is we've started the first day of the class it is literally focused on teaching just basic Wi-Fi concepts. So it's a little bit like taking all the concepts you need to know to design and manage a wireless network and teaching them in the first day of the class. So that's what we do on day one of the class, and that was something that was important to me, and something which, as we chatted through Juniper, that was something that was quite new to them, doing a full day of just technology teaching before you get to the product. But that's what we do on day one of the class. It's a little bit like a CWNA Lite, if you want to think of it like that way. It's a similar sort of concept if you've taken the Akahau class to the first day of that, except that's focused more on things you need to know for design, whereas this is focused on general wireless concepts you need when using and configuring a MITS network. And that's knowledge we then implement as we get through the next 3 days of the class. So day one of the class is all about configuring a MITS. How do I get a system set up and running? A MITS wireless network set up and running. What do I need to do to configure it? So claiming access points, configuring wireless LANs, and that whole part of it. And then day three of the class, the concept behind day three is, okay, what about ongoing network operations? So I've got my network set up. How do I, as an administrator of that network, what are my ongoing operations? And that is where we cover things like what MIST calls though SLEs, service level expectations, which is how a lot of the monitoring of the client's user experience is done. So that's where we go on day three. And then day four, we look at two main topics, which are both important to MIST, but and one of those is location-based services. And we look at how all the BLE and Wi-Fi location services work within MIST. And then the final section is the automation and scripting. Now, that sounds like quite a lot for a 4-day class to get through. Basic Wi-Fi concepts, how to set the system up, how to monitor it, and then this topic of automation and scripting and location on the last day. And then to add into that, as we were developing this courseware, MITS launched wired assurance, adding wired switches. And a request came through that they wanted it to become part of the class as well. So we squeezed that in as well. So although we don't go into a huge amount of detail, it's squeezed in there on how to claim switches and what some of the monitoring we can do on switches. A lot of that happens on the third day of the class, but we've sort of squeezed that in too. Now it does mean there is room for a higher level certification. I know there's been talks on maybe creating a more in-depth automation class, because we can't teach you how to, write Python code in a half-a-day class. But the idea is to give people a starting point. Hey, this is what's possible with MITS. This is what MITS provides through its APIs. Here's some scripts that you can use in the labs to get started. And here's some other resources. So the idea really is giving you all you need to know to get going yourself and learn more. And that's really where we're trying to get to with this class.
Just a quick question then that just popped into my head, and you mentioned about labs. I assume with everything that's going on right now, this is a virtual class, so no in-person classes at the moment.
Yeah. So you're right. So again, this was I guess another sticking point. I'm a very big believer in in-person classes, and from day one I said this had to be an in-person class. We had to have instructor kits with all the lab gear, and we would take it around the classrooms, and I fought very hard for that as a model, and it was all agreed. And then of course we have a global pandemic which stops any of us traveling, and quickly the class had to become a virtual class. So, Juniper Education Services have a massive lab team, and again, this is where we've got the benefits of the bigger organization that is Juniper Education Services, and they got their lab team to set up a lab environment. And I think, to be honest, I think I gave them a few challenges when I told them what labs I wanted to do, because setting up a lab on some wired switches is quite easy. When I've now won labs and they're going to be like 16 access points all in the same rack, and I want to do throughput testing and have segregation, I think I think I threw them a few challenges, but they did well.
Because that was,
and they have set up this remote lab environment.
That was what my next question was going to be. Then how did you conquer and sort out the lab process? Because I remember vividly one of the labs that we had when we sat the CWAP course with you, and you wanted to enforce roaming between access points, and we were trying to come up with a way to make a client device roam between access points. You tried shutting a door, it didn't work, so in the end we had to use stick Mac in the way, and that enforced client roaming. So that that was just one of the unique fun ways we came up with doing a lab in class. But trying to do labs like virtually and stuff, that must have again another set of unique challenges that you had to overcome.
Yeah, a massive set of challenges actually. And I did consider employing Mac to sit in the lab room all day, just running backwards and forwards, but he wasn't available. So we've had to adapt the labs a little bit. So, for example, the probably the main lab that I couldn't do, which I would do in a classroom environment, would be a location lab. We do a lot of location demos, and there's quite a detailed explanation of how to configure it all, but we can do a live location lab. The lab environment we've got set up is we've actually got 2 racks now, so we can have 2 simultaneous classes going on. Each rack has 16 access points and 16 client machines in the rack. So as a student, you get assigned an access point, which you get the claim code for, and you get assigned a basically remote desktop access to the client machine. And most of the activities, obviously, you also get a MITS cloud account assigned to you, which we've got set up. And most of the labs, obviously, you can access the MITS cloud just from your own machine. But when you want to connect to the SSIDs you've created, you can remote desktop to this client we've got set up, which is in the same building as the APs, and it's nice because it's a 2-spatial stream AX client, so we can do full AX testing in the lab environment. Nice.
If you
the difficulty we have a little bit sometimes is the first lab we do is we actually just look at again, this goes with day 1, which is a Wi-Fi concept. We do some Wi-Fi throughput testing to look at what happens when APs are on the same channels, different channels, separated channels. Obviously, all my APs are in the same rack, stacked on top of one another. But we do show a picture of that on the class of the lab environment, and we explain it, and then we interpret the results based upon the environment that we get, which again makes for an interesting sort of lab exercise.
Sounds very interesting. If you are lucky enough to have some, let's say you've got some missed equipment at home, is it possible to carry out some of these tests on your home environment, or is it still all just done through the labs in the class?
Yeah, it'd be possible to do it. It's better we prefer to do it in the lab environment, really, because we do set up, for example, one of the activities is you configure a 802.1x SSID, and then the instructor will break that, and then you use the MITS AI, the MITS sort of dashboard, to troubleshoot it and find out what the instructor has broken.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So that sort of relies upon the lab environment.
Probably safer to use the lab environment than the home environment if we're going to be breaking it, because otherwise we're going to have kids and wife screaming, Wi-Fi's gone down.
Absolutely. And also, I as the instructor, I'm not going to tell you why I've broken it. That's for you to find out, or how I've broken it. Because we want it to be as real world as possible, this class. So being able to do those sort of, and again, that comes with its challenges. Anybody knows who you do, a lot of people say never do live demos. Well, it's a similar thing in when you're teaching live courses. And one thing I've learned about MIST is it's a living, breathing organ, really. I think that's the best way to describe it, in the fact that it's been developed and updated all the time. Okay. It is the microservices architecture means that they can update one microservice, they can be doing things. So I could be doing a class simultaneously as MIST is pushing out some updates. So what I experienced in my lab last week may not be what I experienced in my lab the week after. In fact, even if I tested it the day before, it may not operate quite the same when I'm actually performing my lab. So it does keep instructors on the toes, but it does also demonstrate how incredibly flexible the MIST cloud architecture is. But we do sometimes get some results, and even I'm going, yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. And we've seen. I've reported one issue I saw once, Joe, in a class, to have, oh yeah, that microservice was going slow. We've restarted it. It should be working now. And it was working. And I was thinking, that's a problem I've reported. And then within 10 minutes, it's fixed. Can you imagine another wireless vendor? You could report a problem that you found with a curd revision and then have it fixed in 10 minutes.
Absolutely not. But the support team at MIST are unbelievable. Either you go onto the MIST dashboard, you click on the little help icon, create a support ticket. Every time I've done that, I've had a response probably within like 10-15 minutes. So not just a generic response either, that someone's taken on your ticket and they'll get back to you. It's actually someone, oh, actually I've had a look at that and it could be this or this, or maybe it was this and that. So and I can imagine that the team's very good at updating the code, just as good as the support team are getting back to people very fast.
And we had some proper Wi-Fi questions that are not too easy to answer by a person that is not a real Wi-Fi, good professional level guy. Like, you had issues where your DFS channel SSID didn't show straight away, and we had the person coming back to us saying, oh, this is a DFS channel, so you have to listen on that channel before you are broadcasting stuff. And this is like a really, really nice response that you wouldn't expect from a NOC. Typically.
So yeah, I mean, I actually I was a little bit embarrassed about that. Actually, I'm glad you brought it up, Mac. Thanks. I think it's probably no surprise to anyone. I've got a few missed access points at home. I live in an apartment block, so it's the people above me, people below me, people to the side of me. I'm surrounded by my neighbours, but also a lot of my neighbours, they've got the ISPs. So from the default Wi-Fi settings, their home routers, they're blasting out on 80 megahertz wide channels using the whole Uni 1 non-DFS band. So if I wanted to use one of those channels, I'd have a lot of contention. So me being smart, being a Wi-Fi engineer, I started to use some of the non-DFS channels. And then I looked at my Wi-Fi scanner the other day, and then I saw that some other people was now they must be learning some Wi-Fi, because they started to use some of the non-DFS channels too. So I wanted to avoid them. So I moved my access point onto channel 120. And then I moved on to channel 120, and I was like, oh, where's my SSID gone? Why do I not see my my SSID anymore? I was like, oh, it must be something wrong with the access point. Let me reboot it. Unplugged it, plugged it back in, came back up on the dashboard. Didn't see my SSID broadcasting. So I'm sitting there scratching my head, and I'm thinking, why am I not seeing my SSID? So I contact support. I say, hey, look, MIST, I've got one of your access points here. I've just moved it onto this 5 gigahertz channel. I don't see the SSID. Like, what's going on? And yeah, like Max said, within a few minutes, I got a response saying, oh, hey, did by any chance you moved this onto channel 120 and the AP can't broadcast for 10 minutes. It's got to listen for a DFS for 10 minutes before it can broadcast. And I was like, oh, I did know that. Why didn't I just? Yeah. And I was like, I just kind of hung my head in shame for a few moments and think, yeah, I should have known that, really. But it's one of the things I did know and just forgot. And then the support team are great. Like, they didn't even be like, don't you know that you can't broadcast for 10 minutes? But they just put it across in a great way.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you talk about DFS, because it's something we do discuss in the class. Is a little bit about the DFS algorithms within MIST and how they work. And I know when I teach a course, I've got a Wi-Fi metrics tool, which I'm sure some of you will know about, which can generate radar pulses. So one of the things I like to demo is exactly the same thing that Jussi's showing there. And we can generate a radar pulse on there. So I literally cause a DFS event on an AP I have set next to me, and then say, well, what channel is it going to go to? And we look at all missed APs. You probably notice have a third radio in. So it has one radio which is constantly scanning all the other channels in the environment, used for security, for whips, but also used just for getting information about the alpha environment. So each AP knows what every other channel looks like. So it can determine from, channel utilization, Wi-Fi interference, neighboring one, what's the best channel. So we have a look at in the Miss UI, well, which channel would we pick based upon what it thinks all the channels are like? Now, which one has it picked? And why is that when we actually cause a DFS event? Now, what's fascinating about it, and this is something which, again, I've had to learn about MIST, and if you use any other wireless vendor, if I'm teaching a course, I could say teach it on its code base, and I know it's always going to behave the same. Because MIST is using machine learning and AI, their algorithms are getting better and better and better, and they're changing all the time. So even over the life of the time I've taught that course, I've seen that algorithm change. And it get better, that channel selection algorithm. Initially, I think one thing it did was it always went to a non-DFS channel, so it didn't have that wait time. And then it potentially went and tried to find a good DFS channel while it did the wait time. But I've seen it sort of improve and get better, that algorithm over time, as the machine learning algorithms has collected more and more data, so they can improve that channel selection algorithm.
Yeah, I think it's for the teachers and students alike that there's like so many things where the mindset has to be shifted from complex CLI to easy to use UI on the first glance, but also like the richness of data beyond it. But one good example, besides DFS, is for example RRM. Right? A typical RRM is for the teacher, it may vary between different versions, but you're locked to teach a certain version of the code, and this is exactly how RRM works. So if I detect, a neighbor AP signal at X, then I will do Y and things like that. With MIST, it's totally different story, right? It looks at the user experience of the client, and it does trial and error called reinforcement learning, where it kind of tries to up the transmit power, lower the transmit power, change the channels, and looks at how are the clients doing after these changes. Did it have a positive impact or negative impact? It had a negative impact. I shall punish the client or punish the algorithm a little bit, weight it differently, try a different thing, and all of that. How do you, as a trainer, you've played with these kind of systems for a while now, and now as trainers, we have Juniper Education Services trainers, we have you, and now we have also recruited kind of other people from the Wi-Fi industry, like the Raymond Hendrickses and Scott McDermott, all of that. So Eddie Ferrero. So how do you deal with all this uncertainty of versions and different kinds of algorithms that just cannot be that easily like explained in a couple of sentences? If this, then absolutely that.
Yeah, and it's definitely a challenge, but it's about teaching the concept, pretty much what you said. So we teach about the reinforcement learning algorithm, the fact that it makes a change and it assesses it gets feedback, and it uses the capacity SLE actually now to look for a user experience. As the user experience got better or worse, it gets that reinforcement and the algorithm works again. So it's really important to understand that that's how MIST is working from the user's point of view, because it also means that your LLM is going to get better the longer you leave the algorithm running at your site, because it's going to learn and optimize it for your location. But it's also important, from my point of view, is what we try and do a little bit with the course is, there's an element where you could see MITS as a little bit smoke and mirrors. Don't worry, MITS just does it all. It's all machine learning AI. You don't need to worry about anything. So we try and dig into those algorithms a little bit on the course and say, well, actually, what are they really doing? How are the SLEs actually being calculated? What does it mean when it says network issues? What's that actually mean? And the reason that's important is because even though MIST you've got an algorithm which is constantly learning from itself and reinforcement, and there's still some general principles with ROM, which you need to learn and you need to know. One of the big key ones is, if I'm a designer, how should your design affect your ROM configuration? And I guess the first question is, should it? And the answer is absolutely should. But how? Because as anybody knows, when you design a wireless network, what do you design for? You design for primary coverage, secondary coverage, and you create heat maps, don't you? And on those heat maps at that design, every access point is set at a particular power level. If you change that power level, let's say you reduce it, you're potentially going to create secondary coverage holes or primary coverage holes. So there's a principle that actually, how do we ensure that we allow MITS to do its magic and not break our design? And I think that's really important that people learn. So I'm a big believer in the minimum transmit power that we can MITS allow us to configure, and allow it for a reason in the ROM algorithm, is set to whatever your design is set to. And then you can allow your APs to increase in power should environmental conditions affect it. So it's from a trainer point of view, that's where we want to get people to. We want them to understand the algorithms that are being run, and then, but what does that mean practically that they need to implement to make their algorithms work well and not break any design that's been done?
So, what's your experience on the mindset shift from the student perspective? How have they taken this? I know you have a masterful approach of like kind of combining the traditional way and the MIST way and kind of making it understandable. What's been the response from the students? I'm actually also curious to hear from Mac and Matt once you guys have done this, how did this compare to the traditional courses? But Peter, since Mac and Matt haven't yet taken the course, Peter, from your experience, like how's it been? How's the student response been to this a bit different approach?
Yeah, the feedback's been very, very good, actually. And there's been an awful lot of positive feedbacks. We've had a lot of people have been, quite a lot of Juniper employees, but a lot of people who have sat in this course are people who have sat all the JUNITS training and all the certifications. And I've actually had some students, and not just myself, actually, I've spoken to other instructors as well, who have said, oh, best course I've ever sat. Or best Juniper course I've ever sat, and I know I've not seen all the feedback forms, but I've had feedback from Juniper Education Services that they're very pleased. They said they're all some of the highest score in feedbacks they're getting. And in one sense, I'm a little bit like, because we did have to sit there and say, look, no, I want it to be different, and there's reasons I want it to be different, and I really had to sell that idea. So I'll be honest, it was a little bit of a relief, because I would have, if you sell an idea and then it falls flat on its face, you sort of leave yourself with wagon face. But I think people are seeing the benefit of it now, and it's actually having a real positive effect, inside Juniper Education Services.
I'd never be in doubt that a course that you write, Peter, would be one of the best ones that anyone would ever sit. How many classes have been run now, roughly? Do you guys know? How long has it been running for? Like, when was the first one released to that? How many have been done now?
It's a really good question. There's literally classes running virtually every week at the moment. So there's a lot of classes running, and sometimes 2 classes running simultaneously. So that we started off, the first class was back in, I'm trying to think when the first class was. It was either end of September, beginning of October, the first class.
Yeah.
And then we ran 4 sort of pilot classes, and then they've literally hit the ground running since then.
Oh, good.
Wow.
So if I am a listener and I want to attend one of these virtual classes, like where do I go to find out more information? How do I get onto a class?
I think you just Google JNCIS Mist AI or JNCIS Mist or Mist course. You will find it that way. You will end up in the Juniper Education Services website, and in there you essentially apply for the course. And there you go. You guys have just started applying recently, haven't you? So you register, get an account, and go from there. Essentially, the easiest way probably is actually to contact your Juniper reseller or Mist reseller and just ask them. This is not the course itself is not free of charge, so there needs to be some money exchanging hands. But don't get me wrong, the Mist Master course and there's some other material as well on the website that's absolutely free of charge. But then this one, it's maybe the best way. Just talk to your Mist SC or salesperson.
So the actual course name, so the certification is the JNCIS Mist AI. The actual course name is called Juniper Mist AI-Driven Networks. So that was a finalized name. I know it went through a number of different naming credentials, but that's what. So Juniper Mist AI-Driven Networks brackets Mist. That's the class you need to look at. So it's on the Juniper Learning portal. And you can see a list of all the classes.
And I guess if it's your usual class quality, you will have students attending it more than once. It's like me and Matt, we are thinking about attending your CWAP class again.
Yes, yeah, I do very often have students attending my classes twice. So I obviously don't do a very good job the first time, and people need to come back for more.
It's the other way around. People just want to spend more time with you, Peter, and try and absorb some of that knowledge that you have again.
Well, I love spending time with you guys, so you're always welcome.
It's like, you attend the class for the first time, and then you don't want to focus on only taking notes, or, you just want to understand the material first, and then you realize how much stuff there is to it. And then you just want to focus on things that you probably have missed during the first attempt. I'm pretty sure that attending your class for the second time will be as valuable as the first time.
And if you're attending the class, something that's worth knowing is Juniper do, if someone has it, so it's like all access packs you can buy, where you can basically then you buy it and you can basically then get access to all their classes.
Really?
So if someone has one of those, yeah, it's called an all access pack.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then you could do Junos classes. You can do literally all up to Juniper education classes.
Is it time constrained?
I believe it is. I think it lasts for a certain
like a year
amount of
or
time.
something.
I think it's like a year or something.
Yeah,
that's quite cool. Do we know roughly how expensive is it?
For an individual, I'm just looking at the prices now. It looks like it's about $6,000 for an individual.
Well, it's not too bad if you are planning on attending more than one class. If it's it's already paid off.
Yeah, if you're just paying one class, but if you're going to attend a few, it's just worth looking out for.
Yeah, and it's nothing for your guys' employer anyway. I mean, they're swimming in money, right?
I wish. Are we, Matt? Are we swimming in money? Looking at your screen, you must be.
What, the one behind you, that big 75-inch beast?
Oh, it's like, yeah, okay. Now when you mentioned it.
Maybe what we're missing is some pinball machines is what we need to get in here.
And last time I was in your man cave, you had 2 machines, and now you have 3, I think. Do I see it right?
Yeah, that's right. I had to upgrade to get you here one more time, man.
What happens when you get another one though? Have you got room? That's the question.
That's the thing. Then I'll start, hauling out, the desk has got to go and the work stuff has got to go, I guess. But so I can't do that until I retire.
So yeah, like Mac mentioned earlier, we're going to be sitting the class very soon. So we're also going to do kind of like some follow-up sessions as well for our experience for sitting the class, and we'll take the exam, and then we'll give some feedback on how we felt for the class, for the course, and for the exam. Because yes, for me personally, it's great to get an insight into how this all came about, and then for me, this is one of the only courses that I actually want to sit in 2021. I've been struggling to find motivation to study for some other other stuff, but this is actually the only one on my list that I wanted to get on. So very much looking forward to it. How about you, Mac?
Man, absolutely the same. I just hope that Raymond Hendricks doesn't listen to this podcast before the class, otherwise he will get a heart attack knowing that, we both attend his class and then we will be writing about it and podcasting about it.
Absolutely. I think I'll be really interested in getting your feedback on the exam as well, because it was I'll be honest, I've been involved in exam writing processes for many different organizations and companies over the years, and this was one of the most interesting. And I think I was really pleased with what we came up with the exam. Very pleased with it.
Peter, for this one as well.
What, sorry?
Did you write the questions?
I was involved in it, yeah. The way that Juniper do it is they hold what's called a certification workshop with a psychometrician for a week. And there's got to be at least 6 subject matter experts in that meeting or for the week. And you sort of divvy up the exam objectives and all write some questions, but then the whole group reviews every question. And you reject at least half of all questions written. Possibly higher than that, actually. 50% get rejected and they have to be rewritten, but probably 25% of the ones that get accepted get rewritten in the review process. And then all the ones that get rewritten, you go for that process again, and then again a half of those there, so you go through it again until you get all the questions written.
So by the time you finish this, 2 weeks process, you already had 5 people reviewing your questions.
Yeah, by the time you finish, you've literally have gone through the questions of really good quality, and they, there's so many rules which you can and can't do when writing these questions, and that's what the psychometrician is there to do, is to make sure that you follow the rules and the guidelines to make them fair questions and not unfair questions. There's certain words you can use. You can say, which of these is not. It's got to be a positive question, and there's all these rules, but what the result of it is, I think you get a really good exam. So I don't know if you guys ever set exams. I've set lots where you go, that's just a really badly written question.
No, actually the last 2 exams that I've taken, you've either written the exam or you've been involved with writing or helped. I think you validated helped with validating someone else's exams. And the funny thing for me when I took the CWAP exam is that none of the questions are like that. So none of the questions are there to catch you out or trick you. It's just to see if you actually know what you're talking about. But after sitting on your class and then taking the exam, as I was reading the question for the exam, I could see you in my head talking about that topic. And that was just one of the ways that I was able to, if I didn't sit on your class, I would not have passed the CWAP exam 100%. I went through some video material before I sat on, but then after coming in your class and then, listening to you for a week and then reading your questions, it was one of the nicest exams I've taken for sure. And then the following exam that I took, it wasn't written by you, but you had input into making sure the questions were, not like that. So it's not a misleading question where, you're trying to work out, actually, does it mean this or does it mean that? It's very clear, if you're asking the question, it's to get to the point of what the answer is, not to try and catch you out, which other vendors seem to like to do, which I don't particularly like. But
no, I don't like it. People who put distractors in the question, that's what they call it, and I just think it's wrong. I think you're testing someone's knowledge, and it's really important. But I was really impressed with the MITS process. They were really key. Really, it was really important to them that the process was good. I've got it. There's one guy who been a great help to me in Juniper Education Services. He was also in its certification workshop called Kia, and he said to me at one point, he said, "Wow, you really care about it, don't you?" He said, "I've never had someone, but by the time we get to the end of these workshops, everyone's like, yeah, just whatever," and you're also going, no, that's not quite right.
So
so it's funny, but it's true actually. I think what's come out of that process and why I found it really enjoyable actually was because what's come out of it is a really good exam with fair questions that test the knowledge and not and all there's always only one right answer, and there's always and it just tests that level of knowledge at that level. So I'll be interested for your feedback.
I was going to say, so is the exam multiple choice, or is there any labs, or is it how?
No, it's all multiple choice.
Okay, and is it like 60 questions, 2-hour time limit sort of thing, or roughly around that? Okay,
absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay, so Peter, what was the most memorable moment of you preparing this beautiful course?
Oh, now there's a good. I did enjoy doing the exam workshops, as I've said. They were quite enjoyable. But I think that's a good question. What was the most? I think actually probably for me, one of the things I enjoyed the most was just digging into the SLEs, the service level expectations, and understanding actually how they worked, because there wasn't a lot of documentation on that. So, and also just the configuration, how you configure a mixed network from I found there were certain things which weren't documented very well. So I've enjoyed sort of coming up with, okay, how are we going to teach that? Because very often when you're coming up with a class, you think that there's lots of examples you can read, there's lots of documentations on things, and you're sort of teaching something which has already been taught before almost. So you've got, at least, even if you come up with a better way, you've got ideas in your head. But there were some bits, and I was just like, I've got no idea. There's nothing really on this. So coming up with those ideas from scratch. So you'll see on the course, there's a little diagram I created I'm quite pleased about, which shows all the different MITS configuration objects and how you have organizational level objects, site level objects. And I kind of like coming up with those concepts, thinking, well, okay, how do we visualize this and how do we teach it to students? And similar with the service level expectations as well. Okay, how do we teach? What's involved in every classifier? What causes that classifier to either be good, so give a bad user minute, or a good user minute? What causes that to happen? And I quite enjoyed digging into that, working out how it works, and then thinking out through how do you present that to a user.
Must have been fun. I remember, like, from the very early days of your content writing, you had this fancy Marvis. It wasn't a spreadsheet, but it was like a table which gives you the options, what you can use after what command, what is the syntax that will give you a specific, answers to your questions. Do you still have that in the course?
Yeah, so I always say it's really there as a bit of a user guide for users using Mervit's query language. I love the query language in Mervit. And in fact, I tend to go there before the natural language. But I really, really like it. I think it's a really powerful tool. But actually, you've got to learn you've got to almost know what's available. What can I search? What are the commands? And although it does give you a prompt while using it, which a lot of people don't know about, if you're typing a query using a query language, hit space after, and it'll tell you what the options are you can do next. That's really useful for people to learn. A nice top tip. But I have documented it as well. So what all the options are.
To know what you can ask. It isn't any different than learning how to use Alexa or Google Home or Siri or anything. It's just, you just have to know what are your options.
Yeah, and just for the listeners' benefit, so Marvis has in a way two flavors. There's the natural language processing system that you can pretty much throw anything at it, and it will try to do like kind of best effort, understand what you said, and give a response. But then there's the query language, which is like a structured kind of SQL or SQL-like language that expects precise input to the language, but then it becomes. It's almost like if you spend 10 minutes learning the query language, it will save that to you. Like the comparison would be like if you put a good query in query language, it's the same as harvesting 10 gigabytes of log files and finding the needle from the log file just by typing an SQL type of a command. And like Peter said, the UI kind of teaches you how to use it. But I agree, like once you go kind of beyond the SLEs and the basic stuff that's in MIST, one of the most fascinating things for effective troubleshooting is exactly the query language. And many people don't even know that it exists. Highly encouraged to try.
Yeah, and the query language is really powerful, and you'll notice when you use a natural language, it just tries to what it does is it basically converts what you ask it into a query. So if it's not quite right, you can modify that query language by clicking on bits of it that it's basically converts it to a query language. So I think it's really worth spending time learning the query language, because then even if you use a natural language, you can then go, oh, no, it's not quite got what I want. Let me just change that element of it and get what you want out of it. So for the people who like to, learn that sort of little bit more technical detail, I would definitely encourage learning the query language.
If you nail it, it makes it more efficient, right? You can ask for multiple things at the same time. It makes sense to learn it. And I'm looking forward to something like more iconic in your course. Like in CWAP, there was a section where you were talking about which frames are not acknowledged. And one of these frames was the acknowledgement. And I still remember you going around and saying all the time. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm looking for that moment in this course as well, man.
Good.
Is there anything that we've missed, or because I wouldn't want to miss anything about the missed course, but anything else about maybe the exam or the course or the class that we haven't yet covered that you guys want to make sure we get across before we wrap up the podcast?
So since there's been let me ask Peter this. So since there's been a lot of developments, both in the MIST UI, there's now, wireless or wired assurance. There's the new access points like, wall plate AP and all the AX APs that are new, like 32, 33. Is all of that also incorporated in the most recent version of the course? And how often do you kind of upgrade the course?
Yeah, it's a great question. The course is constantly actually being updated. There's a team of people inside Juniper Education Services. There's a couple of guys responsible for keeping it up to date. So it's not actually on my responsibility. I wrote the initial course. They're keeping it up to date. But the instructors we've got are well aware that the updates are coming out weekly. So to be a MIST instructor, you've got to be reading those updates, and we're constantly a lot of the course is giving demos and showing things in the UI. It's not all slides. The slides are there as a talking point. It's how I believe a class should be run. There's not a lot of words on my slides. There's pictures which are there as a talking point. So actually if a class is taught that way, then actually it's easy to incorporate new stuff, because you're doing it more as a demo anyway. So as the product evolves, what we teach evolves as well to a large extent. So it is, we're flexible instructors and a team constantly updating it on about a 2-week cycle. It keeps getting updated. Then
that's frequent.
And it also comes down to the instructor. For example, the new instructors that we have, not just Peter, but everybody else, they're internally motivated also to always try out the new things in MIST and kind of understand what is this, what does it do, and how should I talk about it in the course, even if it's not in the courseware, right, Peter?
Absolutely. We've got an instructor Slack. We've got an instructor Slack group, and even today, there was a couple of instructors there with all their questions, and we've got guys from MIST answering them, really good guys answering them. So, and again, as an instructors, we all learn from that Slack group. So as these more and more questions come in from students, if someone doesn't know it, there's a way of our instructors getting answers and understanding what they see. So, it's a constant learning experience, but we are always learning, and that is something I would say, is that if you've got questions as a student, do ask your instructor, because even if they don't know it, they'll probably be able to find the answer out fairly quickly.
Yeah, and just my experience from teaching some classes recently is it's nice as an instructor to have that engagement back from students. It's nice to, rather than you've got obviously go for as an instructor, but it's nice when you get questions from the students that you can have that two-way engagement rather than you just talking at the students constantly all week. So it's nice. And the other thing I found as well is that if you as a student have a question, sometimes there's other people in the class that maybe is not as confident as what you are, or maybe they have the same question in their head. So you asking that question, it actually helps everyone else in the class.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. And by the way, there will be more activity on the Slack group, since there's a production push tonight, I think, on MIST again. So there will be a lot of new features and bug fixes out. So pretty sure we'll see more activity there again. So is there like a regular cadence? So whenever a production push happens, you guys gather up, or it's more like an ad hoc?
Yeah, it's more ad hoc. We always read, in the Mist UI, if you go to the little question mark, there's an update section where you get, Mist always publish what's new. So I encourage all Mist instructors to keep an eye on that and try out everything that's new. Let's try it out. That's what we do. First thing, and again, I guess if there's questions from us playing with those new features, that's when there's going to be sort of questions come up. Just to keep us all sharp and ticking over.
Very nice. Is there anything else that we've missed off or you wanted to add in?
I guess we just need to get you guys on the course, get the paperwork signed up. We still have like 1 working day or 2 working days left, so we just need to get that squared out. And I really look forward to hearing your guys' experiences, because you guys have already used Mist for a while. You've extensively used other systems as well. You are trainers, and so there's a lot of good perspectives that you guys will probably have on the course.
Really looking forward to it. Can't wait to attend it, to be honest. I'm sure we'll get the job done. I feel like it's transfer deadline day and everyone's fighting against the clock to get the deal done to get us onto the course, but I'm sure it'll happen. Okay, well, if that is it then, we haven't forgotten anything. Well, if we have, I'm sure me and Mac will be able to gather it from what we get from going on the course and taking the exam. But Jussi, Peter, thank you so much for spending the last hour talking to us. It's lovely to see you. We miss you, and it's great having you on the show again. Mac?
Thank you for having us on. It's been great to be on, and it's been great seeing and chatting with you guys too.
Thank you so much for having us. I really look forward to seeing you guys face to face, but so far it is what it is.
Yeah.
Looking forward to having like a pint or 5.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone, and look forward to seeing you all very, very soon.
Thanks. See you soon, guys.
Thanks.
Bye bye.